Have you ever seen such an incredible welfare benefit? You can have all the snacks and mineral water from a vending machine for free, and you're given a backpack with an MP3 player and some money, but it only refreshes the next day. The catch is that you must stay in this space for 35 years, and there's no Wi-Fi. Hello, everyone, I'm Wanda, and welcome to my unknown world. Today, I want to share a Mexican film from 2014 called The Incident. In this film, there are two brothers with limited education and no proper jobs. They make a living through petty theft and mischief. One day, the older brother returns home with a big haul, feeling ecstatic. However, the younger brother is nervous and seems to be hiding something. Despite his attempts to explain himself, the older brother interrupts, saying they have money now and should celebrate. But their joy is short-lived when a detective unexpectedly arrives and asks the older brother to accompany him to the police station. The younger brother is in a state of panic, fearing that he's messed up something. As they head to the station, the older brother suddenly attacks the detective, knocking him down with a stick. The brothers flee, and the detective gives chase, ordering them to stop. When they don't, he fires a shot, hitting the older brother in the leg. Strangely, the detective appears to be inexperienced and is startled by his own actions, dropping his gun and checking his trembling hands. Suddenly, a massive explosion from above shakes everyone. The older brother, wounded, cries out in pain on the ground, but there's no response from anyone. The detective tells the younger brother to stay put, promising that once they reach the police station, they will get medical help for the older brother. However, when they try to exit the building, they find the door locked from the outside, and despite being on the ground floor, they can still see an endless staircase below. Confused, they descend one level, only to find a sign indicating 9th floor. They realize something is seriously wrong, and no matter how many floors they descend, the staircase keeps repeating. The older brother believes he's hallucinating due to fear, and the detective climbs back up the stairs. The younger brother starts banging on the door, but it's futile. When the detective finally reaches the top floor, he encounters the brothers again, and everything seems to reset. The detective drops the keys from above, and they eagerly await the descent. After a moment, the keys drop, but the detective is now suspicious of the brothers, thinking they drugged him. They attempt to call for help, but there's no cell signal. During their ordeal, the detective provides basic first aid to the older brother and gives him painkillers. He shares that it's his wedding anniversary and that he was on a trip with his family when this happened. Sadly, the older brother succumbs to his injuries and dies. The detective returns to the vending machine and discovers that the snacks he consumed yesterday have been restocked automatically. Overwhelmed, he starts shaking the vending machine. Seizing the opportunity, the younger brother grabs the detective's gun, seeking revenge for his brother's death. At this point, the film transitions to another story. The family of a man named Danny is on a vacation trip, but the atmosphere between them is tense. Danny's stepfather and his two children don't have a close relationship. To please his younger daughter, the stepfather gives her a sip of guava juice, unaware it contains lemon, to which she is allergic. She has an asthma attack, and the mother asks for the backup inhaler. However, Danny had forgotten to bring it because he was distracted by a call from his biological father. In a hurry to get back home and fetch the inhaler, they experience a massive explosion in the distance, like what the detective and brothers encountered. They pass by a gas station where there's no sign of anyone present. The mother tries to give her daughter some medication, but her condition doesn't improve. The mother's frustration erupts as she blames the stepfather for giving the daughter lemon juice and for breaking the backup inhaler. She scolds him for his carelessness and even questions his driving skills. As they continue driving, the scenery remains the same no matter how far they go. The mother accuses the stepfather of missing a turnoff and berates him relentlessly, saying he's useless even at driving. They pass by the same gas station again and desperately cry for help, but no one responds. At this moment, the stepfather noticed something was amiss. He had been driving on this road for 20 years, and he had never seen this gas station before. It seemed like they were completely trapped on this road. Danny had never trusted his stepfather, suspecting that he deliberately missed the exit, believing he was playing tricks on them. Danny contemplated getting out of the car to seek help, but ultimately, he was pulled back into the car by his stepfather. The family continued driving toward home, but all the road exits had vanished. They were just driving forward, and even though it was 7 to 19 in the evening, the sky remained as bright as midday. As they continued driving, they unexpectedly returned to the gas station. It was now 10:44 in the evening, yet the sky hadn't grown dark, and the seemingly endless straight road had no end. After seeing the gas station sign for the north time, the stepfather, feeling both anxious and frustrated, got out of the car and ran into the wilderness by the roadside to seek help. In no time, the younger daughter's pulse ceased, and the wife repeatedly struck herself, attempting to awaken from this nightmare. Her mental state was on the brink of collapse. Danny got out of the car, carrying his sister's lifeless body, and slowly walked up the never-ending road. Shortly thereafter, the stepfather returned from the wilderness, completely exhausted, and declared that they couldn't escape. They were utterly trapped. Shifting the perspective back to the stairwell, 35 years had passed. Easy open cans had piled up like small mountains in the stairwell, and mineral water bottles held their bodily functions. The detective sustained himself by consuming instant noodles and soda every day. He even painted his envisioned family life on the wall. He had aged and grown senile over time. On the other hand, the younger brother was quite clever. He had figured out the mechanism that refreshed items every midnight. Using countless mineral water bottles, he constructed a bathroom, assembled numerous nail clippers into a mirror, and fashioned several toothbrushes into a comb. The physics book, MP3 player, and money in his backpack also refreshed regularly. So, the younger brother spent his days listening to music, working out, and studying the physics book that explored the mysteries of time and space. Although life was monotonous, he found pleasure in it. The grudge he once held against his brother had faded away over 35 years, especially as the detective had grown old, senile, and was nearing death. The younger brother began to care for the detective attentively. Meanwhile, on the highway, the stepfather and wife sustained themselves on the daily refreshed food. The gas station had transformed into a landfill. The two of them engaged in sexual activity every day, but the wife had lost her vitality, making it a one-sided pleasure for the stepfather. Danny had long separated from them. He used the refreshed work clothes to create a tent, cut cans in half to cook prickly pear cacti, and listened to music while climbing mountains every day, keeping himself physically fit, all while waiting for the day they would escape. This situation persisted until a certain moment when the wife passed away, and the stepfather was nearing death himself. In anguish, he screamed that he remembered what had happened. 35 years ago, when the stepfather was still a child, he had taken part in a school activity. The boatman accidentally drowned another child on the raft. Since then, he had been stuck on the water for 35 years, just as they were trapped on the never-ending road. The boatman remembered everything only when he was nearing death. He had been trapped on a never-ending stretch of water, unable to escape, much like the situation with the road. In his final moments, the boatman warned the stepfather not to board a red car in a few days, or he would meet the same fate as him. He handed the stepfather a little red book and then passed away. After reading the contents of the book, Danny buried his stepfather and mother. Walking onto the road, Danny encountered a police car. His hand gripped the door handle, but he instantly recalled his stepfather's warning. He resisted the temptation, turned away from the car, and returned to the wilderness. Inside his tent, Danny reminisced about his unchanging life for 35 years. Eventually, he longed for change. He set his tent on fire and sat inside a police car. In that moment, Danny lost his memory. He followed the instructions in the little red book, cutting his hair and donning the uniform, becoming a police officer. Simultaneously, a mission appeared in his mind, to apprehend a pair of criminal brothers who deceived and robbed people. The next scene in the film depicts Danny trapped in the stairwell for another 35 years. By this time, the detective inside the stairwell is nearing the end of his life. Suddenly, he recalls the experience of being trapped on the never-ending road many years ago. He also remembers that his real name is Detective Danny. Ignoring the fact that it's 3 a.m., he loudly calls out to his younger brother and tells him that there's something important to convey before he dies. He instructs his brother to remember the advice: in a few days, an elevator will appear here, and under no circumstances should he enter it. Otherwise, he will be caught in another 35-year cycle and forget everything. The current him will become his brother's future. The detective emphasizes not to take this life in the stairwell seriously. Everything here is fake. He explains that they are like machines in the real world, providing emotional movement for people who seek happiness. He advises his brother not to enter the elevator, as doing so can break the cycle. After conveying this message, the detective passes away, and the younger brother sees the elevator the detective mentioned. He is frightened, covering his eyes with both arms. The younger brother returns to the floor where he used to study the laws of time and space. However, he can't focus on his studies now. Anxious and distraught, he tears up his books and erases the speculative diagrams on the wall. The absence of the elevator torments him like Pandora's box. At one point, he contemplates ending his life but ultimately decides against it, choosing to endure rather than die. However, he doesn't heed the detective's warning and enters the elevator, losing his memory in the process. He adopts a new name, Carl. Carl's occupation is an elevator operator. One day, a newlywed couple enters the elevator, paying no attention to his presence, and they begin to show affection openly. The elevator stops on the 30th floor due to an unexpected series of events. First, Carl accidentally drops the groom's bag, and then a bee stings the groom, who is allergic to bee stings. Unfortunately, Carl also breaks the groom's allergy medication. Suddenly, a massive explosion occurs, signifying that the cycle has repeated once again. The 30th floor corridor becomes an inescapable space, and the groom dies. Carl and the bride will be trapped here for another 35 years. The film concludes at this point, with a storyline filled with imaginative twists and turns. While it initially appears to be a mind-bending science fiction film, it delves deeper into exploring human nature and the notion of being perpetually trapped. The massive explosion sound symbolizes the start of unresolved issues or psychological burdens, much like the lyrics of a song, living this way for 30 years until the building collapses. We see various characters in the film expressing regret for the past actions. The boatman regrets letting the child fall from the raft. The stepfather regrets breaking his daughter's breathing device. The detective regrets shooting his brother. And Carl, formerly the younger brother, regrets dropping the groom's bag. These regrets are symbolic, as they reflect what might have happened in the real world. The film uses the elevator as a metaphor for the unresolved psychological burdens that trap people. Towards the end of the movie, we discover that the younger daughter did not die but reached her destination, where she reunited with Danny, her biological father. The wife and stepfather, after a heated argument, divorced. The stepfather's life took a downturn as he resorted to alcohol and eventually committed suicide by cutting his wrists in a bathtub. Danny grew up healthy and happy, pursuing his interests and eventually becoming a detective. In one mission, he shot at the criminal brothers but only injured one of them in the leg. The injured brother received timely medical treatment and did not die. However, in a subsequent turn of events, Danny returned home one day and discovered his wife cheating with a neighbor. In a fit of anger, he shot at him, resulting in his imprisonment. He spent several decades in prison and, upon his release, faced a bleak and hopeless life. In the end, he chose to end his life by jumping from a rooftop. On the other hand, his younger brother, who had also faced legal trouble due to his involvement with the criminal brothers, was eventually released from prison. Despite not having an education and having a criminal record, he avoided returning to his old ways. He lived a life teetering on the brink of subsistence. His job as an elevator operator required great effort to secure. However, in middle age, a moment of temptation caused him to lose even this tenuous job. The film essentially tells the stories of two ordinary people trapped in an infinite cycle of inescapable situations, showcasing the monotony of their lives within these bizarre alternate spaces. It's a reflection of their state of mind and the unchanging nature of their existence. Each explosion that occurs merely transitions them from one predicament to the next. On the never-ending road, Danny visits the wilderness to discard a breathing apparatus daily, symbolizing his deep guilt regarding his sister. However, he also persists in listening to music, climbing mountains, and staying active to forget this guilt and live life to the fullest. In contrast, the stepfather turns the never-ending road into a garbage dump, indulges in alcohol, and engages in reckless behavior, representing his surrender to sensory pleasures, forsaking any hope of escaping the cycle. Inside the stairwell, the younger brother spends his days listening to music and exercising with boundless energy. The daily refresh of items mirrors his determination to rebuild his life upon release from prison, making the most of his newfound freedom. However, the detective, sharing the same space, adopts a completely different attitude, idling away his life and descending into despair, reflecting a sense of hopelessness in middle age. His behavior is characterized by self-deception and evasion, as depicted through alcohol and painkillers. The film subtly hints at the character's efforts to find excuses for the guilt and mistakes. Danny attributes his shooting to a mysterious force guiding his hand, and the younger brother intentionally destroys the bride's bag in the corridor, ascribing it to an external mysterious power. These are their ways of rationalizing their actions, but it's essentially a coping mechanism to escape the harsh reality. The film also explores the characters' dynamic transformations as they transition from youth to middle age. Both main characters start as vibrant youths who listen to music, climb mountains, exercise, and read books. Yet, when they reach middle age, they forget their own names. This highlights the film's underlying theme: at what point in life do we abandon our true selves? As children, we dare to change the world, believing that we are here to make a difference. However, as we grow older, we often resign ourselves to the idea that changing the world is an unrealistic dream. The film serves as a reminder not to wait until the necessities of life have drained our romanticism and courage. It encourages us to continue embracing our inner youth and adventurous spirit. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and share it. Your support is our greatest motivation to keep updating.